Rural Electrification Authority, lighting up rural Kenya. Rural Electrification Authority has invested 34 billion shillings so far to get electricity to the rural areas countrywide where thousands of Kenyans live. Now, more public institutions, trading centers, schools, health centers are getting connected to electricity. So far, Rural Electrification Authority has connected over 60% of all public institutions. By 2013, more than 1 million households will have electricity. Rural Electrification Authority, lighting up rural Kenya.
Want to know the latest innovation in engineering? Are you curious about how technology and machinery works? The Kenya Engineer has answers for you. We are an authoritative journal covering engineering stories in Kenya and across East Africa. Log on to www.kenyaengineer.co.ke and get the latest on engineering jobs and tenders. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook and join the amazing world of engineering. Kenya Engineer, demystifying engineering.
Awesome. Brought to you by Kenya Engineer and Rhino Cement, building Africa. From power generation and transmission to energy conservation and sustainable supply, the engineer is involved in every aspect of energy. Energy directly controls every single sector of development, and its availability and use greatly determines the productivity of a nation.
When you take part to a school, it improves on the performance of the school. By the end of last year, June, we were concentrating on secondary schools. We did not clear all of them, but we did, I think, more than 80% of the secondary schools. And we believe this has really helped in terms of performance. And this has really an impact on the level of literacy in our country. Right now, we are talking of the laptop project. We are in the forefront in supporting that program. As we are talking today, we have about 20,000 public facilities in the country. 9,000 are electrified. 11,000 are not electrified. So that is what we are tackling now jointly with the Ministry of Education.
From concept, we think about energy. Engineering, we think about energy efficiency. In processing, we think about energy. Energy is a resource. And as ARM, we are alive to what is happening in the global scene. And we know that the only way is to be more efficient so that we reduce on our carbon footprint, we reduce on our energy consumption, and we pass that benefit to the mwananchi, to the customer, and to the global environment.
The more developed and advanced the country gets in terms of technology, the more the energy demand.
With the Vision 2030, we want to go from, say, agricultural-based economy into a knowledge-based economy, service-based economy. Now, this one cannot be achieved without engineers. This country is an energy-hungry country. For you to have an idea, in Kenya we have 1.5 gigawatt installed capacity, 1.5. In South Africa, a country with the same number of population as Kenya, they have 50 giga. That is more than 30 times our production, meaning that our economy is almost insignificant when you compare with the economy of South Africa.
There's a lot of potential and the country needs to develop it. Naturally, there will be a concern and focus on ensuring that the end tariff matches the expectation of the country's development. It will require participation by investors to try and make sure that they invest and develop the geothermal on a win-win scenario.
We are on a road to industrialization by 2030, and in the process of industrialization, energy has a very big role to play, because it will attract the investors who come into our country, now various counties. At the same time, to ensure that adequate power is available for anyone who wants to come to Kenya and set up base here for whatever kind of industry they are planning. And energy will determine where someone is going to invest, how they're going to invest, and what they will do. So there are wonderful programs at the moment in terms of development. Juba to Lamu corridor. I think it's a repeat of a history from Mombasa to Kampala in the 18th century. Now we are in 21st century, we're going with another massive program. And that will bring in a lot of innovation, technology, and a lot of new entrepreneurs on the same corridor.
Industrialization has increased energy demand, and the Kenyan engineer has no alternative but to seek sustainable and affordable energy for Kenya.
When we set up this plant, we had an acute power shortage in the country in the year 2008 to 2009. So the government instructed us to fast track the generation of electricity to minimize the gap, because we were using a lot of emergency power in the country. That is a huge cost to the consumer. So when you use heavy fuel oil, you can set it up pretty fast. We actually set up this plant in a record 14 months. When we set up this plant to convert eventually into using gas, gas, as we all know, is cheaper, a quarter of the cost of heavy fuel oil. We are looking at converting the engines to use gas so that that value is transferred to the consumer.
The Lake Basin Development Authority is to spur development in this region to a point where what the government defines in terms of the Vision 2030, our main issue is to interfere with the economic pillar and also the social pillar. Once people can increase their incomes in whatever way, then we feel we'll have contributed to the government's Vision 2030. The hydropower projects with components of agriculture is able to do that. And if we do it, the faster we do it, then we'll have contributed a lot to the Vision 2030.
According to the reports, the current energy demand stands at 1,191 megawatts, with 69% of it coming from hydropower plants. However, the unpredictable rains have made this form of energy production unreliable, leading to serious energy shortage and power outages. It is for this reason that engineers are working day and night researching and developing new forms of energy.
I believe that the greener buildings is going to be the technology of the future, and I think it will be achieved. It's already started, and I think it will be fully achieved. This means you've got a building, it is going to be green and smart. Smart in the sense that it's a building where, for example, it can be self-sustaining in terms of energy and in terms of quality of life in those particular buildings. For example, we believe that there's no reason why we should be able to be having lighting in buildings during the day. I think that really is something that we should try to do complete away with. Because if there's natural light like we have in this country, why should we be putting the lights on? Putting on the lights on means that we are consuming more energy. And of course, depending on the sources of generation of that energy, you know what that means to the economy. So if we can save energy in the buildings that we occupy, both in the cities and in homes, I think that will be a step forward in the development of technology.
The engineers are now focused on efficient, clean, and innovative ways to supply energy that is not only sustainable, but that actually meets the demand.
In terms of energy, I would say that we start normally with the feasibility studies. In this region, we have 3 major projects planned. Magwagwa, which is 120 megawatts, Nandi, which is 60 megawatts, Webuye, 30 megawatts. All these are multi-purpose in nature, and that's what we look at. Previously, we had made plans. We have a regional development plan, of which you can see the Kisumu airport the Eldoret Airport, the Sondu Miriu hydropower project, which are the direct concepts from that regional master plan.
Having benefited a lot from engineering as a university. I mean, as you can see, the buildings we've done them in a very eco-friendly way, and we couldn't do that without innovative engineers. And we found it as the next frontier of growth in any country. If you train engineers and you train them in a way that they can fit into your economic context. You see, we have a Kenyan context of development, and we need to train our own engineers. And Strathmore wants to get into that field, train engineers, because we want to be part of Vision 2030.
On realizing how power controls the economy, the government embarked on a program to light up Kenya by connecting more people to power. The result of the rural electrification was an increase in demand, leaving the engineer with more work of generating more power.
The question is, how does rural electrification help in the economic development? If you go to the countryside, 5 years or 3 years after we take electricity there, you see a total change to a particular area. You find things like salons, weldings, which were not there before, simply because there was no electricity. But with the coming of electricity, you find that now people are able to start what we normally call the juakari activities. And through this arrangement, we feel we are there is promoting economic development in the rural areas. In fact, I don't think there's any country in the world you can go, which we call them the so developed, without electricity in the rural areas.
Kenya, like many countries in the world, is wrestled with the challenge of generating renewable and sustainable energy to meet the rising demand. Our engineers research and develop ways to generate new energy by tapping into renewable resources like wind and solar. The engineer has also ensured improvements on machinery to ensure energy efficiency by reducing emissions and protecting the environment.
Geothermal is itself environmentally friendly way of generating electricity. However, even in doing so, we have to be cautious about the way we manage the resource, the fluids that we have extracted after utilization, making sure we have re-injected. Naturally, as we are currently in a park, we have to be sensitive about the environment and make sure that we work together with the park authorities in maintaining the environment.
There is also an investment in the production of geothermal power to boost the energy supply in Kenya.
Geothermal is a capital-intensive investment upfront. You have to identify the resource. You have to drill using rigs similar to those that drill for oil. You then evaluate the resource and match your plant to the resource to extract the energy and generate electricity. There are 2 or 3 different types of technologies used. One of them is the steam turbines that are currently in use at KenGen. The other is what we use here, which are binary units, basically transferring heat from even resources that have very low temperatures.
Experts believe that the reliance on renewable sources of energy like solar and wind power is the solution to the acute energy shortage in the country. Join us in part 2 and learn how engineers have innovated means of energy conservation in an attempt to retain demand levels.
Want to know the latest innovation in engineering? Are you curious about how technology and machinery works? The Kenya Engineer has answers for you. We are an authoritative journal covering engineering stories in Kenya and across East Africa. Log on to www.kenyaengineer.co.ke and get the latest on engineering jobs and tenders. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook and join the amazing world of engineering. Kenya Engineer, demystifying engineering.
Communication and the exchange of information is one of the most important parts of our society. Establishing that connection has been where I see engineering to be human and real.
The great thing about being part of a society like IEEE is it helps to foster that constant learning environment.
It does this through a number of activities, either through its international conferences, through its workshops, through its short courses, and through its publications.
IEEE breaks all the barriers. It doesn't have any boundary.
Knowing that there are other women that engage with engineering, showing that role model, I think it's important.
It's the interaction among people. It's the side conversations. It's the chatting in front of a whiteboard that makes it so valuable.
As seen in part 1 of the show, the role of the engineer does not end with the generation of electricity. The engineer has to ensure that the produced power reaches the consumer on time and at the right voltage. This they do by designing and testing machinery for converting and transmitting the electricity.
Once we have connected to the national grid, which we do it here at 132 kV, the grid line, the transmission line, is actually linked to several stations in the country. The nearest one here is in Rabai. Then the transmission line goes all the way to Nairobi, Naivasha, Nakuru, Kisumu, even up to Entebbe. Of that, there are small step-down substations from where consumers, the common man, you and me, connect your electricity using poles.
Since resources are limited, the engineer must therefore devise means by which energy can be conserved and used efficiently. One of the ways this has been achieved is improving existing processes to reduce the cost of producing the energy.
Energy efficiency is at the core of our process team. We understand what energy means and what it costs. The cement industry is one of the largest consumers, consuming close to 100 to 130 units per ton. But in ARM, we have managed through our energy efficiency measures to bring it down to a level that we can proudly announce we are doing at around 95 units per ton. And that has actually resulted in a benefit that we don't just see it at the bottom line, but it is translated into the consumer price, into the social benefit, into growing this economy in other aspects.
The higher the cost of energy production, the higher the rates transferred to the consumer. Kenya as an African country will benefit from the Power Africa initiative that intends to assist in increasing power production for African countries. Our engineers are strategically placed, ready to ensure Kenya benefits from this through research to determine the best approach that is unique for Kenya. To be able to use the energy we have, various companies have ways of reducing their energy consumption. Energy efficiency means that one is using only the energy that they require for intended production.
This building is 3 years old, but when it was built, it was the first green building in sub-Saharan Africa. And it is part of a 22,000 square meters of green building. Green building means a building which is designed such that it is very cheap to maintain. As you can see, we have a lot of natural light, so no light is on in this building until 7. Also, we have a lot of natural air circulation. These holes you see behind me here, they are replacing air conditioning. We don't have air conditioning here because they are very expensive to run. We use the so-called water evaporation cooling system. There are fans in this building that circulate this cool air around through these holes you are seeing and others. So it's very easy, very cheap to maintain a very comfortable temperature here. Apart from that, we have solar water heating. All our kitchens and the food stuff prepared with the water heat by the sun. And also we have the so-called solar PV, photovoltaic grid-connected system, which is we use the power of the sun to get extra energy, and we pay less to Kenya Power. As a matter of fact, we are beginning the construction of a 600,000 watts a grid-connected system to cater for all our needs as Strathmore during the day. It will make Strathmore to become the first zero carbon footprint university in sub-Saharan Africa.
In our processes, we do what we call, we match our consumption and our demand. If say today we woke up and found that we need to run a fan at a speed less than maximum, we don't go throttling the fan. We actually reduce the speed so that for the same work that we require today, we use more energy. And that is transcending across every motor in our plant, every road design in our plant, every vehicle movement in our plant, so that we reduce on the consumption as it occurs. So we monitor our processes at every stage, at every level, on real time.
This means that more companies are reducing energy costs but still remaining productive.
The cost of energy is an issue for any kind of business and organization, and ways in which and capacities and capabilities that can reduce the cost of usage and also reduce the energy consumption within plants become highly critical in these moments. There are ways in which costs of energy can be reduced for factories or for high-powered machines by up to 60%. But it's the innovation and the knowledge, the ability to adapt new technologies that becomes absolutely crucial.
The cost of production is greatly determined by the cost of energy used. Therefore, it is important for the consumer to be in charge of their energy use at any given time. The role of the engineer goes beyond thinking of the sources of energy. It is about implementing the innovations to test their applicability and their sustainability. Without the engineer to put in place the machinery and the infrastructure to transmit this power, then the consumer will remain in darkness.
The vision for the region is to have everybody get power by 2020 as the target set by the government. Having gone around the country, I personally believe without electricity, we are a backward community. And we need electricity for everybody, not as a luxury, but as a basic need. Because we can't develop without electricity.
The energy sector involves all kinds of engineers who have to work together to ensure the consumer receives the energy.
Once you generate 5,000 megawatts, you need to consume. How do you consume? You need lines, overhead lines, take the power to the consumer. We need various substations. I mean, to meet 5,000 megawatts will require probably about 260 substations to be built within next 3 years. Are we ready for it? What are we doing? And what is the local capacity in terms of engineering ability to achieve such a goal?
Many companies today are working together with the engineers to ensure that the energy produced is used efficiently but with maximum production results. Awesome. Brought to you by Kenya Engineer and Rhino Cement, building Africa.
Want to know the latest innovation in engineering? Are you curious about how technology and machinery works? The Kenya Engineer has answers for you. We are an authoritative journal covering engineering stories in Kenya and across East Africa. Log on to www.kenyaengineer.co.ke and get the latest on engineering jobs and tenders. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook and join the amazing world of engineering. Kenya Engineer, demystifying engineering.